So hello guys, welcome back. In this video we are going to learn about the fragments in Android application. So first of all we will learn the basics about the fragments by covering some theory about them. Then we will design two fragments in a practical application by giving a coding demo. And then we will control the communication between the fragments with the help of main activity. So stay tuned and watch the video till the end. So guys, let's discuss what is fragment. A fragment is a standalone module or some UI design which can be reused on different screens within the same application. For example, we have this tab bar in the first screen. So here we have the three screens. So we have the same tab bar at the bottom of every screen. So there are two ways to do it. The first one is designing the user interface on every screen by writing the same code for every activity, which will increase the code size and complexity as well. The second and the efficient way is by using a fragment, which will be a standalone module of tab bar, and the same code can be added on different activity. So fragment can be used to present them on different activities with the same UI design and with the same code. So what is fragment communication? So fragment can communicate with another fragment within the same activity. For example, on the screen we have two fragments, the fragment 1 and the fragment 2. So they cannot directly communicate with each other. So we have to design a mechanism in which the fragment 1 will send a message to the main activity, and the main activity will deliver this message to the fragment 2. So any data from the fragment 1 can be sent to the fragment 2 with the help of messages or some user interface. So how to make fragment? So first of all, we design some layout or some layout file. Then we will add the functionality of that design or layout file with the help of corresponding Java class. And then we embed that design layout with the help of fragment keyword on the desired activity. And then we will control the communication between the different fragments with the help of activity. So guys, this was the theory or some background for fragments. Now let's do a practical example and see the fragment in action. For this, let me open the Android Studio. From here, I will create a new project. Select the empty activity and click next. So here, give the name fragment demo app. Select the Java class and everything is okay. Now let's click the finish button. So let's wait a while until Android Studio is ready for the development. So guys, our project is ready for the development. So we can see here we have the main activity having its main XML file for designing the UI. As discussed, we will create two fragments and we'll embed those two fragments in the main activity. So let's do it. So first of all, we will design the first fragment. For this, we have to go into the resource directory, and from here, select the layout from the file, new, and from here layout file, we will give the name of the fragments as fragment 1. So we are okay with other things, click OK. So guys, our first fragment is here. So now let's design some UI for this. We will have to select a simple edit text. give its constraints so that it can appear at appropriate position. Now let's design a button. Click and drag the button on the desired location. So I am okay here. Let me readjust and give its constraint with respect to this text view. And now let's give the text for this button as, for this go into the code, and from here we can give its text send data. So okay, our first fragment is ready. Now let's design our second fragment. In the same way, we will select the layout directory from the file, new, and layout resource file, and here we will give the name as fragment2 and click OK. Now we have to drag a text view on this layout file and give appropriate location here. So guys, the design of two fragment is ready. In the first fragment we have a simple edit text. So guys, the design of fragment is ready. In the first fragment we have edit text and data. We will write some data here and click the send button, and that data will go into the second fragment and the text view will display that data. So now it's time to add the functionality or class for these two fragments. For this we have to select the Java and the directory. From here click on file, new, and Java class. So the first fragment we will write fragment1 and double click on the class. So now we have to add some directives and some coding for these fragments. Now let's do it one by one. So first of all we will have to import So guys, our directives are added. Now we have to extend this class as fragments so that Android Studio can be able to discriminate this class for the given fragment. Now we will have to inflate this fragment. So for this we will have to override a method called onCreateView. For this click Ctrl O button and from here search for onCreateView and double click on it. Boom, it is added into our class. Now we will have to return our corresponding fragment class from here. For this, now let's write view fragment1 view So we are writing the fragment1 class, so we will have to inflate the fragment1 here. So guys, the class for the first fragment is created. In the same way, we will have to write the backend class or functionality for the second fragment. From here, click on File, New, and Java class. So we will write here fragment2 and double click on the class. So we will have to repeat the same coding and directives for this fragments as well. So in the same way, let's do it. So our directives are added for the second fragments. Now in the same way, we have to extend is as fragment class. So in the same way, we will have to press the Ctrl A and search for on create view method. It is locating here. Double click on it to add. Delete this default code, and here in the same way we will have to return the view. So second fragment is equal to inflator. In the same way we will have to select the second fragment and the second fragment. So okay guys, our two fragments UI and their backend functionality are ready. Now let's embed these two fragments into our main activity. For this, go to main activity, and from the containers search for the fragment. You can see here, click and drag this fragment onto the desired location. But before that, let me delete this label. Now click and drag this fragment onto the desired location. So it is automatically suggesting the fragment 1 and the fragment 2 we just have created. So select the fragment 1 because we want our first fragment on the top. So okay guys, now give some constraints. So in the same way, click and drag for the second fragment at some bottom location. Select the fragment 2, click OK. Now let's give some constraints. And okay, we are okay at this location. So now let's see either our fragments are added or not. For this, select the device from here and click play button to see our code in action. So let's wait a while until Android Studio finish the installation of this application into our mobile phone. So guys, as you can see here, our two fragments are in action. So in the first fragment, we are seeing the same edit text and the button. And for our second fragment, we are seeing the only text view we just have created for our two fragments. Let's review it. This is first fragments, this is second fragments, and you are seeing both fragments at the desired location on our mobile application. So guys, now let's add a way to communicate between these two fragments. So now let's come to the first fragment, and from here we will give a reference for our edit text because we have one edit text and one button here. So for the edit text, we will write our code as private static edit. So guys, now let's add the reference for our edit text. But before that, we have to search for the ID of this edit text. This is edit text person, copy it and come here, and we will have view dot and paste the ID. And in the same way, it is best practice to typecast it. In the same way, now let's get the reference for the button and add its on click event. So our button is accessed. Now let's add its button click event. And click on it. So now let's add a method when this button is clicked. We will add a method for it. And call this method here. So guys, now we have to introduce an interface in this first fragment which will communicate with the activity. For this, we have to define the interface here. And we will add a method here for our interface. And we will have to pass the text of the edit text for this function. So now we will have to attach this fragment, and for this we will write a method on attach. Double click on it, so it is added. And here here we will have to initialize all the code when this fragment will be attached to our main activity. Let's make a global variable. And now let's initialize this listener instance in this file. So here we will write if some exception has occurred. So when the exception will occur, this code will recognize this exception and send to us for our information. So whenever the button will be clicked here, it will call this function, and in this function we will send a message to our activity. So for sending that message we will use the instance of our listener, and it will send that text of our edit text to our main activity. So guys, the interface and the communication method for our first fragment is set. Now the message is going from this fragment to the main activity. So now let's come back to the main activity to receive this message. For this, come to the main activity, and from here we will have to import some directive here. So we will import androidhive.fragment app and fragment activity. Our main activity will extend the fragment activity, which will implement the interface of our first fragment. So now let's add that first fragment listener, and it is giving us some error because we have not yet included the method of the first fragment listener. Let's add the method here. So boom, whenever a user will press the button in the fragment 1, and the fragment 1 will call the method of button click events, and this button click event will get the text of the edit text and send to the main activity via the interface or callback of our first fragment listener. So now let's come to the main activity, and from here click the second fragment, and we will have to give it ID as fragment 2 and click refactor. So we have given it ID to get the instance of the text view on this fragment 2. Now let's come to the fragment 2, and in the same way we will have to access its text view. Private static text view and obj text view, and in the same way let's get the reference of this text view for this view a second fragment and dot find the ID of this fragment, and that will be text view. So in the same way, we will have to make a public function which will be accessed on the main activity to set its text. Now let's get the function public void set fragment1 text, and we will pass the text here. And it's best practice to typecast this text view. So guys, let me summarize what has happened. In the first fragment, we have set the interface or messaging method, and in the second fragment, we will just display the text we have received from first fragment. Now let's come to the main activity and let's get a reference of our second fragment for setting the text view. For this, we'll write fragment2 because our text view is on the second fragment. And here we will have to give the ID of our second fragment. We just have set. Now call the method. For setting the text view, we just have received from the first fragment and set it. So guys, it's all set. Now let me summarize what we have done now. So we just have created two fragments, interface files, and we have made two different files to access these fragments. And in the first fragments, we have set one edit text and one button, and we receive the text from the edit text. We have made a button and we pass that text with the help of interface to the main activity. And in the main activity, we access the second fragment and set the text we just have received from the first fragment and allocate that text to our second fragment. So guys, it's time to test what we have done. Select the device and click the play button. And let's wait a while until our application is set. Let's wait a while until our application is flashed into our real Android mobile phone. So guys, this is our first fragment. And the second fragment, we are just receiving the default text view. Let's send that name to our this fragment. Click the send button and boom. Our name text is sent to the main activity and main activity has set this text. In the same way, let's try another string. We will receive all is well. Now again click the send data button and we can see the text written in the first fragment is being sent to the second fragment for the text view. So we can write what we have in our mind. Click and we are receiving the text from the first fragment to the second fragment. So guys, hope you have enjoyed the video. This is enough for this session. See you in next video.